weather, the cold weather. I'm in a freeze zone, so who knows? Maybe it goes down, maybe it doesn't. We'll find out as we get through this. But I wanted to have this conversation about the red object because I really want to understand them a whole lot more. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to get right into what it talks about with them.
The Red Ajah trained themselves to not see men as people.
Okay.
Understanding the Red Ajah 1. Origin story. Trauma baked into the foundation. The Red Ajah is a direct psychological scar from the breaking of the world. After Luz therein and the 100 companions sealed the Dark One, Sidin was tainted. Male channelers didn't just go mad, they destroyed the world while doing it.
Now that's a key thing. Like, this is a historical fact. Now I'm going to break down a lot of ways how the Red Ajah are completely lunatic, how they go about their business. But at the core, it starts off with something that's completely justifiable, right? The Sidin is tainted. That's for all men. So it doesn't matter what the guy's heart or intent is, right? It destroys the best guys, the strongest one. In fact, the stronger you are, the faster it gets you because you're channeling all that power. And literally, the destruction that they had on the planet was intense. Like, whole continents collapsed, like massive groups of people just died right then and there. It was the worst possible scenario, and they had to point at the men and say, yeah, you guys did it. Now, they create some psychology that goes down the road later, but this is essentially where they're coming from, and they're not wrong in how they're seeing this, right? So we can talk about it in an honest way. That's exactly where they're coming from with this, right? So let's get deeper into it. Let's let it kind of play out here. Our little learning tool.
Civilizations collapsed. Continents cracked. Entire populations vanished. So when the White Tower formed, the question wasn't should we deal with male channelers? It was how do we survive them? The Red Ajah became the Tower's immune system, aggressive, uncompromising, and willing to amputate limbs to save the body. Their founding logic was brutally simple. Every male channeler is a ticking apocalypse. No nuance.
That's a way to view it, right? When you see the bomb and you know that, again, it's not tied to a particular personality. It's all the males because the source of it is tainted. They can't help but go crazy, right? It's going to happen. None of them want it to happen, but it doesn't matter. So they have a very pragmatic look at it, but we'll see kind of where it gets. But it's definitely dark. I'm not going to defend what they do just because there's good reasoning. It's definitely dark, though, right? We can get all that.
No exceptions. No, but what if is nice? 2. Core philosophy. Fear, control, authority at its heart. The Red Ajah believes 3 things. Sidin is irredeemable. Men who channel will always go mad. Delay equals catastrophe.
So that Sidin is irredeemable. Like, it's done. It's baked in. We don't know whether that's true, but right now we can functionally operate that way. And 2, the men will go crazy. At least it seems that way. Now they're focusing all this on Rand, obviously. We haven't seen whether this is going to have the effect on, Perrin or with Matt, right? But we don't really see them channeling in the way that Randall does.
Creates a worldview where mercy equals negligence, debate equals weakness, power equals preemptive control. Unlike the Blue Ajah or the Brown Ajah, the Reds deal in certainty. They don't ask if someone is dangerous. They assume it.
Yeah, and they deal with certainty, but stuff you also don't know the answer to, right? So it's not certainty. They're pretending that they're certain. And I think at the core of them, you're still making decisions based on fear, right? That is what they're doing. Whether it's right or not, like I know I make, decisions based on fear. I saw a dog outside the other day. The dog scared me, so I crossed the street, right? It is a fear decision. Turned out to probably be a good decision, but sometimes when we're making fear decisions, it typically isn't the best.
And because they're often right, eventually, the Tower lets them get away with a lot. That's how fear becomes authority. 3. Methods. Clinical, relentless, and cold. Red Ajah operations are intentionally impersonal. Locate male channeler, capture, gentle move on no warders, because bonding men was considered emotionally compromising. Attachment clouds judgment. Judgment gets people killed. This is important.
Now, this is kind of the thing with them, right? They go a lot of steps further, right? Because they don't want to have any attachments, because that is going to cloud your judgment. What they're sacrificing, though, is humanity. Like, at some point, what's the point of doing any of this if you're not doing it to stay attached to humans? So it quickly goes sideways. You can quickly see that. And that automatically turns them into what I'm sure they didn't start off being is you guys hate men, right? There's not an easy way to get around it, right? Because like, look, who knows what the Dark One had been if it had been females who challenged him at that time. It could have easily turned that way. So just in general, it's kind of a weird kind of way that they center. They really do. Not that it's bad, but I'm just saying they're centering one view of it. And because of it, they're allowing gender slander. And that's what they've slipped into.
Red Ajah trained themselves to not see men as people, but as weapons that malfunction. That emotional distance is a feature, not a bug. 4. Political power. The quiet hand on the wheel here's where things get dangerous.
Yeah, and this is kind of the thing. Do you want people who don't you functionally don't care about or have to openly resent, a large portion of the population? So it's weird that, you can't care about families. Like, that's kind of what that means. Like, you can't care about communities. You can care about individuals. You can care about a gender. But how much does this matter if you don't actually care about any communities? Because you can't. Because any community, they're going to have some little boys there. If you have a group of women who are mothers, one or two of them is going to have a male child. So it's automatically going to create some tensions, like all the way around, right? Like all the way around. We even see it internally. I think it was Leandra and her son, who was this old dude that I didn't fully get at the time. But now we understand what was really going on.
Because the Red Ajah's mission is existential, they are tolerated when abusive, trusted when authoritarian, deferred to during crises over centuries. This turned them into the unofficial internal security force of the Tower Kingmakers and a Merlin Breakers, experts at leveraging fear to pass policy they didn't rule openly.
And that's the thing. They are strong at Beauregard, right? This is definitely it. Now, looking at them, obviously, because we come in more with Moraine and we start to see the blue, like I did, at least saw the blue as being a lot better. I don't necessarily know that that's true because Moraine also lies. Like, there's a built-in conflict between them. Because the Reds are like, look, if there's a male who channels, we got to handle that business right now. Period, point blank. Whereas we know that Moraine was hiding all these male channelers because she felt like she was tasked for a whole different mission. And the Blues often operate outside of the tower, just kind of doing their own solo things. And I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing in this scenario too.
Ruled by implication. Do you really want to be soft on male channelers? That sentence alone could end careers. 5. How it goes wrong. From safeguards to obsession, the Red Ajah's greatest weakness is confirmation bias. Every male channeler eventually goes mad, therefore, any suffering inflicted beforehand is justified.
See, this is where it gets sideways because the moment you start sacrificing having compassion for people, the moment that anybody can get jacked up, it doesn't even matter, right? You've crossed into something else. And it's a tough one because it does kind of make them redeemable. And again, I talked about if you can't, protect, if you can't come out and protect, I don't know what world you think you're protecting if the world doesn't include that I just protect families, that I protect children, right? That I protect, elder men, that everyone gets equal protection. That's the only way we actually have communities because that's how we actually live. So I don't know if what they're doing is right or the way that they go about it, but hey, it's the Red Ajahs. They kind of out there.
This is how you get overreach, paranoia, preemptive punishment, political purges disguised as safety. The Ajah slowly stops asking, is this necessary? And only asks, why hasn't this been done yet? 6. Key figures. Elada do Avrini Aroyhan, the embodiment of Red Ajah hubris. Absolute certainty, zero self-doubt, sees herself as the pattern's chosen instrument. Elada doesn't think she's...
Yeah, that's the thing. Elada, there's a lot of grandiose nature that's coming out of not just the Red, but kind of all of them. All of them believe that they are the only ones that actually have the answer and can get anything solved. So this is particularly what we see. And you see they're quite duplicitous, man. They'll catch anybody in their own self-righteousness. And we see the same thing with the White Cloaks. And I'm going to talk about them separately. But definitely that cockiness and that arrogance with the Reds, man, it's very powerful, very palatable.
Wrong. Wrongness doesn't exist in her mental framework. Her tragedy is that she genuinely believes tyranny is responsibility. She's what happens when fear is crowned. Galina Caspan, the logical extreme. Cruel, power-hungry, secretly black Ajah. Galina shows how the Red Ajah's structure can be hijacked by someone who enjoys control, not just fears chaos.
And that's the thing, having a black Ajah within that is particularly dangerous. because they're completely gung-ho about what they, their own righteousness. You guys are harboring like the biggest traitor of all. Obviously, they don't know, and everybody has to deal with this. But again, you're kind of highlighting the hypocrisy. But this is kind of how they come about business, just in general.
She didn't twist red philosophy, she exploited it. Sutama Rath, the true believer. Not insane, not power drunk, just utterly convinced she represents the everyday red sister who keeps the machine running without ever questioning whether the machine should exist in its current form. Pavara Tazanovny Pavara is the crack in the red Ajah's armor. Intelligent, reflective, willing to revise assumptions, she starts asking the forbidden question, what if control isn't the same as safety? Her later arc shows the red Ajah can evolve, but only through painful self-examination, something the Ajah historically avoids. Sirin Vayu, a reminder that red Ajah dominance isn't new. Former a Merlin, ruthless, politically efficient, she proves that Aleda wasn't an anomaly, she was a recurrence.
Yeah, Aleda, they've had this type. Aleda is very, very problematic for a lot of reasons. I mean, she does well. I mean, she's a foul chick too, man. Like, she really, the way she was talking to the mother, obviously she knew she was going to kill her later, spoiler alert. But just the way she carries herself, you just feel like, overall, just the arrogance with her, man. Like, just the way she goes about it is really incredible. But that's kind of the nature of what. So I think she does really exemplify what the Red are.
7. Big picture. What the Red Ajah really is: strip away the robes and rhetoric, and the Red Ajah is a trauma response institutionalized, a philosophy built on preventing yesterday's apocalypse, a warning about what happens when fear outlives the threat that created it. They were necessary. They were effective. And they became dangerous. Not because they were evil, but because they stopped believing they could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with them. It is that hubris that they think they're right. And in a lot of ways, you're moving like that same destructive force that you would accuse the dragon of. That's kind of how they're moving, right? They're very destructive. They'll tear anything down. And it's all out of them thinking that they're just so much righter than everybody else. Now, the whole thing about it is that there's a particular psychological profile that goes along with being a red. And at the core, they believe that they're risk managers. They can't see male channelers as people. They have to see them as these walking nuclear bombs. Because Satan is corrupt, men go crazy and civilization burns. This means, though, that you cannot have attachments with even people who would have been your family, like a father, grandfathers, brothers. You have to see them all the same. If you have a son, now you're never going to be close enough. None of them should be having sons if you hate men that much. But we did see Leandra, who did have a son. But the psych profile on a red is hypervigilance. You live in catastrophe mode. That's what they're geared towards. They have zero tolerance for anything that falls outside of the way they see the world. They use control as this trauma response, and that's not in a good way, right? We see the Reds are obsessed with control because they think they're staring at a force that can't be negotiated with, which is Satan. It doesn't bargain, right? The madness never retreats. Once someone starts getting it, the madness just gets worse and worse and worse. Prophecy doesn't care about how people feel either. So they're willing to get rid of all that. They're very rigid for their rules. They prefer permanent solutions, right? And they trust systems more than they do actual people. So they have this mindset where mercy is not even a thing. It's irresponsible to be merciful. And that's kind of where their mindset is. They suppress emotionally. So they've got this armor. We see them, they all seem to be very cold, very mean-spirited, right? They're very dehumanizing to male channelers. They're very detached from empathy. And that's the thing. When you start to see one half of the populace as this detriment, you already have killed off the populace. You're saying we no longer have the mechanisms that humans would use to grow. So this is how our populations work. And that's the thing. We can't separate the gender dynamic out of this that most people don't like to talk about with this series, right? Not only is it that they fear male, they actually just resent them, right? They see men as the ones who broke the world, that they can't be trusted, that they must be restrained for everyone's good, which essentially means just the women. So they have this protective instinct, this historical grievance, and they've got this moral superiority, and that's a dangerous mix of ideologies to have. So Aladdin, we see it, like She's so certain that she no longer has wisdom, and that's not an anomaly for being a red. That's kind of par for the course, right? Absolute certainty, this destiny fixation, this fear that's, actually disguised as confidence, and they're very vulnerable to being addicted to the prophecies themselves, believing in it so much. And once you do that, then, the ends always justify the means. No matter what you're doing, like it's always the right thing to do because I believe that I'm wrong and everyone else is right. And they create a dangerous thing with their justifications that eventually, like, look, I know if I'm a Mel Chandler, maybe I'm not sitting around waiting to get hunted on. So it's an interesting thing that they do live in this permanent kind of state of dread. They're kind of necessary, but they're also very damaging. They're brutal. They're conniving. There's a lot of bad negatives that I could throw at them, but also they're very, very powerful as well. So there's a lot going on with the Red Ajah that I think has to be looked at specifically in these ways. And I think, like, as we get deeper into the series, like, all these things really hold together true historically and going forward, that the Red Ajah have always kind of operated, in that same kind of vein. So I got the blues queued up as well. So let's take a look at the actual blues and see if we can kind of get the differences, because they're massive in just how they move overall. Where are we at here? Okay. All right, let's talk Blue Ajahs now.
The Blue Ajah, architects of causes. The Blue Ajah is dedicated to causes, justice, and long-term change, but don't confuse that with idealism. Blues aren't street-level activists or blunt reformers. They are strategists. They pick a cause, study it for years, and then apply pressure at exactly the right political fault lines. Where other Ajahs react, the Blue Ajah positions. They believe that the White Tower's true power isn't raw strength in the one power, it's influence. Philosophical foundation. The Blue Ajah operates on 3 core beliefs. The world is shaped by leverage, not force. Armies win battles. Influence wins eras. Justice requires patience. Blues accept that meaningful change may not come in their lifetime.
Like, these guys are definitely long-term game planners, right? And their cohesion is a little bit different. Now, obviously, since the lead character or one of the main characters, Miranda, is a blue herself, I think it's kind of tainted how we see them, because they definitely operate outside of the rules, and we've seen them go against some of the core principles of the tower. And everyone's the same. Whoever sits in that seat is really representing their own separate Ajah and not the entire group. And they're always kind of at odds with each other. Not even kind of, they're definitively at odds with each other.
Many causes are inherited from mentor to student. Ends justify independence. Tower law is important until it interferes with a greater moral objective.
Yeah, they definitely will go for self. They're known for working independently, giving up direct control to have more autonomy for themselves. And that kind of allows them to do whatever they want. And they skirt rules, and we've seen them break rules just repeatedly.
This is why blues are often viewed with suspicion by other Ajahs. They are loyal to the mission, not always to the tower hierarchy. Methods and tactics. Blues specialize in diplomatic manipulation, intelligence gathering, sponsoring rulers, rebels, or movements.
They definitely have the ear to the ground with everyone. These are definitely themselves. Like, I saw them as spies. Like, as they first, really got introduced, the way that they move is very much like spies. They have their intel gathering. They know how to move in quiet. Like, these guys have multiple identities, passports, money buried places. These guys are fully ready to go.
Quietly destabilizing unjust regimes, playing rival powers against each other. They rarely act openly. If a Blue Ajah sister is visible, it usually means the real move already happened months ago. Their favorite weapon isn't the one power, it's timing. Relationship with tower authority. This is where things get spicy. The Blue Ajah has a long tradition of selective obedience. If tower decrees conflict with a sister's chosen cause, many blues will ignore it, work around it, or openly defy it.
Yeah, that's definitely something we see. That's why Morian was like exiled, because they knew she was working outside of it. That was a way to kind of pretend to hold her accountable, but still allow her the freedom to go do what she had to do.
If necessary, this doesn't make them anarchists, it makes them dangerous. Other Ajahs accuse blues of arrogance. Blues counter that history rewards results, not compliance. They're not wrong. Moiraine Damodred. The perfect blue Moiraine Damodred is the textbook example of blue Ajah philosophy in action. She commits herself to a single cause, stopping the Dark One. She withholds information, even from allies, if it serves the mission.
Yeah, we see her doing this all the time, right? Like, it's hard to trust her. You believe in her, but at the same time, man, I don't know if you necessarily should be trusting her to the ends that they do, knowing, yeah, she'll lie to your face. Like, she'll actually pull that card.
She defies the Tower repeatedly. She accepts personal exile, hatred, and sacrifice without hesitation. Moiraine embodies the blue Ajah belief that truth is a tool, not a courtesy. To a blue sister, secrecy isn't betrayal, it's responsibility. Internal culture blues tend to form deep but selective alliances, keep personal networks outside the Tower, train students to think politically, not emotionally, value adaptability over rigidity. They are often mistaken for being cold.
Like, they're definitely very manipulative, and we saw it with the 5 kids they pulled out of the twin rivers area, right? The rivers. And so she was kind of playing them the whole time. And there was a couple of moments where they all have kind of questioned whether, you were telling me the right things, whether you were being honest. And most of the time, they weren't flat out being honest with you.
In reality, they are emotionally disciplined. Passion exists, it's just tightly controlled. How other Ajahs see them: red Ajah, self-righteous meddlers; white Ajah, unacceptably subjective; green Ajah, too patient; grey Ajah, stepping on our diplomatic turf; black Ajah, interested, but for all the wrong reasons. The irony: many Ajahs secretly rely on blue maneuvering when they don't want their hands dirty. The blue Ajah's real power: the blue Ajah doesn't dominate the Tower through numbers or strength. They dominate through narrative control.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, talking about them emotionally, like comparing it with the red, this is why the reds don't have wardens. You notice that Moiraine is defined by her, or not defined, but we see her relationship with Lan right off the bat and how important and intimate that is, right? How tight they actually are. The red don't do that specifically. I don't know if long term that, I guess, maybe keeps them pure, at least the way they would see it. But man, I like having a dude like Lan having my back.
They decide which conflicts matter, which injustices deserve attention, which future is worth bleeding for, and once a blue Ajah sister commits to a cause, she will pursue it to the edge of the world and beyond. Tower politics be damned. Notable sisters of the blue Ajah patterns, not heroes. The blue Ajah does not produce icons by accident. Its most influential sisters tend to share 3 traits: long vision, political courage, and a willingness to be disliked. What changes?
Like, we saw that with Moiraine. Like, they know that they're doing things that are massively unpopular to everyone else, and they're probably even wrong. Like, what she's doing with Rand, I mean, I don't know that I believe her over what the Reds are saying.
Is the arena they operate in. Moiraine Damodred, the long game operator. Moiraine represents the apex form of the blue Ajah mindset. Commits to a single world-altering cause, operates independently of Tower oversight, accepts exile, secrecy, and...
I mean, yeah, she basically, and we saw her when they all turned and they were kicking her the boot up out of there. Man, you could see it hurt, but she just rolled through it. She took it like it was a shot of liquor. Like, she has no remorse on any of that.
Personal sacrifice, treats allies as assets. Not.
Yeah, she does treat all the kids just like assets. Like, everyone kind of moves, and we've seen her. Man, she's cold. Like, it was early on where they had to throw the riverboat, guy to the wolves. Like, they had to kill him because they didn't want to get caught. Like, so just like that, she makes snap decisions about other people's lives. Like, I was just kind of giving the Reds a hard time for that, but she does it, and again, it's always because everybody thinks they're right, and that's how they all operate.
Confidence. She proves that a blue sister's loyalty is not to institutions, but to outcomes. Suan Sanche, the political blue Suan, shows what happens when a blue Ajah sister enters the Tower's highest office. Master manipulator of Tower politics, maintains secret agendas even as a Merlin seat.
See, that's Suan. Like, and yeah, she is mad blue up in there, right? I mean, she was doing all the things because they're all more loyal to their house, not to the Tower. And I can't see how that's going to work out long term.
Uses authority as camouflage rather than control. Her rise demonstrates a dangerous truth. A blue Ajah sister doesn't stop being blue when she gains power.
That's it.
She just gains better tools. Suan's fall also highlights the risk of blue-style secrecy inside rigid hierarchies. Anayor Carroll, the quiet institutional blue Anayor, represents a subtler blue archetype.
Now, the way the blues move, and we saw a lot of that with Suan and both Morin. Now, there's a particular psychology that goes with being a blue, right? And these guys are always kind of like something's wrong, and it's their responsibility to fix it. They do feel like they don't sit back. They're long-term planners, but they're always doing something. We see that they have like strategic empathy. They're not always nice, and most of the time they're not. It's actually just propaganda. Like, she's very manipulative at using her soft side, not just her cold instincts, right? Not just the cold, like, I'll cut you off, but she knows how to play motherly. She knows how to be charming. She does all those things. These guys are also geared towards being in isolation because they don't fully mess with the tower. They mess with the tower, but they don't. So they don't really fully trust leadership. They're not fully into their allies. Typically, like, your one warder is going to be like your main, ride or die. That's kind of what they need. They don't like applause. Like, they're very much shadow, but man, they're very focused on their goals. Now, these guys are long-term thinkers. They'll take short-term pain, but they do believe in suppressing their own emotions, delayed gratification. That they can, kind of swallow resentment and other emotions because they know they're going to come back later. Like, for them, power is a tool, but it's not necessarily their identity. They love having this influence because that's how they kind of manipulate around authority. So they're winning quietly without saying things out loud. Now, the shadow side of the blue is that, they have a martyr complex. They overextend. We see Morian does this all the time. She's always willing to give up herself, to give up her life, right? She walked out to the desert, right? Just because that's kind of what they take on. And they're not as emotionally clean, right? They are a little more truthful to their emotions. They fall in love. They build different type of relationships. So if I had to really sum them all up, it's someone who's willing to care enough to act even when they pay the personal cost. They really are idealists, I think, in how they went about the world. And then they have to be kind of pragmatic, right? They have to tone all that down because these guys are political operators at the highest level. Now, where the red are more about control versus compassion and the white are logic versus live life, the blues are about outcome first. The feelings have to, F your feelings. We have to get this stuff done. So we can see we got two ruthless sides going at the same kind of goal when we compare the red Ajahs and the blue Ajahs. And right now what I'm seeing is just, I don't know which side I would trust the least, right? Because they're both kind of bad for what they're doing or how they go about it. Everyone can be sacrificed. We've seen innocent people when they set up Eliade, right? When she got set up, there were some innocent people that had to get stabbed up for that to be facilitated. So that's kind of going on both sides. So, but that's how I wanted to get into it today. I didn't have one in the chat, but if you guys want to get in, talk about these characters, talk about the organizations, that's what we're here about. It's kind of a learning tool for me, but let's share it, kind of get the facts down, see if we can't learn as much about the series as possible as we get ready for the 4th season, which I anticipate in like 3 years, right? Something like that. Something crazy like that. But I'm also doing the books right now, so that'll fill the space. But as always, I ask you to hit that like